Hello everybody, welcome back to section 2 of your Big Sky Blanket Club blanket. This section is based on our wildflowers that we have here in Montana, and we are using 2 different colors from Western Sky Knits for this installment, which you may or may not have received yet, but this one is called Leaf, beautiful leafy grassy green. This one is called Wake Me Up, and the super fun thing about this one is that Kim dyed each one a little bit differently so that everybody would get a completely unique blanket. Some of yours will have a lot more white, some will have more pink, some will have more yellow, but they're all really great wildflower colors. Like this little bit of orange looks like Indian paintbrush to me. There's lupins. All kinds of really beautiful wildflower colors that get mixed into the green to make this look kind of like a meadow. So the section that we're going to be doing today it's a little dip stitch, which is fun and pretty easy. Once you get the hang of it, you'll get into a little groove. It transitions from, here's your ripples that you did last time, transitions from those ripples up into this meadow dip stitch with just a little bit of Fair Isle stranded color work, which looks like that on the front, and you'll have some little floats of color along the back. If you've never done that kind of color work, I'm going to give you a quick little tutorial on that too, so don't panic. There's only 3 rows of that. So let's get started. I've got some different colors cast on, but that's okay. You can use your imagination. So this little bit here is going to act just as the end of your blue water stitches from the last section. Okay, so you should have ended by having finished a purl row and ready to go on the right side. You're going to be working on your original 226 stitches. If you're off by a stitch or 2, it's not that big a deal. You just need to make sure you have an even number of stitches before you start. Your exact stitch count isn't going to matter until we get to the 3rd section. So you might have to do a little increasing or decreasing then to get to the correct number, but we'll worry about that when it's time. So as you're looking at your pattern, this part is the setup rows. It's 4 rows, and you only do those 4 rows once. So once you get through those, you won't have to do them again. So what we're going to do first, we're going to knit 2 stitches. They're blue stitches on your pattern. And then we're going to join on what will be your green. I'm going to call this turquoise color green. Okay, when I join on a new color, I just kind of fold my yarn like this to make a little loop with a tail about 3 or 4 inches long, just long enough to weave in. I insert my needle into the stitch to begin it, and then I just put that loop over the needle tip and complete the stitch with it like that. Okay, so then I have my working yarn and a little tail. I just kind of hang on to it for the first couple stitches to make sure it can't move, and I'll tie it later on. So this first row you've knit 2 with your blue, you'll knit 1 with your green, and then the rest of your row is going to be knit 3 blue and knit 1 green. So you can just drop your blue, pick up your green, and knit with it. What's important is that you leave some slack across the back of your work. So you should be able to just kind of tuck the tip of your pinky up under there. If you can do that, it's loose enough. You don't want to pull that super tight from this stitch to this stitch, otherwise your blanket will look kind of puckery. So you're just going to repeat that across the row. Knit your 3 blue and your 1 green. Put that down, pick this up, bring it over, make sure there's that little bit of slack, like that, and then continue on. Oops. And you're going to end the row. This didn't quite work out, but you're going to end your row up by knitting 2 blue stitches. I didn't have the same number of stitches cast on, so I didn't end up that way, but that's okay. Not a big deal. So your first row is going to look like that. We're doing this little bit of color work just to kind of give you a little bit of a transition from the water to the meadow, just so you didn't have like a straight line of green right across your blue. Just to give you a little bit of a visual effect. Okay, now you're going to turn, and your next row starts with purling a blue stitch, but I'm not going to because that doesn't work for the sake of this pattern. I'm going to start with a green. So I'm just going to pull it over here to the side and just purl. Regular old purl stitches, you're just going to leave a tiny bit of slack. So 1 of each color the whole way across the row. You should be knitting the opposite color stitch on top of the one below. So if there's a blue stitch here ready to be knit, you shouldn't be knitting it in blue. You should be, oh, well, I take that back. Sometimes you will. Your stitches are just going to alternate. They don't need to be perfect. Sometimes you'll have a blue on top of a green, sometimes you won't. Doesn't matter. We're just, like I said, trying to break up that straight line. So if you get off in this pattern every other stitch, that's what it is. It's just one blue, one green. Doesn't matter. There's lots of things that just don't matter on this pattern. We're just here to have fun. Okay, we're going to work our way across the row. I'm holding one color in each hand because that's just easier for me. You do it however it works well for you. Okay, the third row is going to be kind of the opposite of the first row. We're going to do 3 of the, what for you will be green, and 1 of the blue. So here we go. This is the row where you don't want to be doing the same. Your one blue stitch should be on top of a green one. But like I said, if it's not the end of the world. It's just knitting, it's just yarn. Just here to have fun. Whoops, look, I get so carried away. I'm already ahead to the next row. Okay. And then when we're done with this row, that's going to be it for your blue. And I don't really want to end this row on just one blue stitch, so I'm just going to finish it up. So it's just a little bit of dappling of your colors is the look that you're going for. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't worry about it if it's not. Once you're done with row 3, you can break off your blue. You're all done with it. And then row 4 is just a really simple purl row back. So you don't need to watch me do that. We'll be back in a minute to get started on the dip stitch. So there's the back side with the floats. And there's the front side with your stitches. Okay, now we're back. I worked that one boring old purl row, and now we're ready to begin the dip stitch rows. It is a 4-row repeat. You're going to be working these same 4 rows over and over again for the whole rest of this section. Once you get into the groove of it, it's kind of a fun stitch. So don't be intimidated by the words that you've read. So if you haven't read through the pattern, go ahead and read through it now just to familiarize yourself with it. There are 2 kind of fun rows to do and then 2 purl rows to do. So on the right side, you're doing the fun stuff. On the wrong side, you're purling. So we're going to start with row 1. Every 2 rows, you switch color. So row 1, it says to use your multicolor. So I'm going to add on my multicolor here. And I'm going to start by just knitting 1 with my multicolor. Okay, so the next word in your pattern, you're at your asterisk. It wants you to skip a stitch, so you're going to skip this stitch, and you're going to insert your needle tip into the stitch 1 row below the second stitch on your left needle. So just poke your needle tip right through the middle of it from front to back. And take your working yarn and wrap around your needle just like you're going to knit. You're kind of knitting through the fabric, and that you pull up a loop is the next part of that sentence. Then you're going to put that loop on your left needle tip right next to the stitch that you skipped. And you're going to knit those 2 stitches together through the back loop. So insert your right needle tip through the back loop of both of those and knit them together. And then you're going to knit the next stitch. And we're going to repeat that the whole way across the row. So you're going to skip this stitch. You're going to insert into the stitch 1 row below the next stitch. So in the fabric, front to back, wrap around, pull it through to the front so you make that loop. Put that on the loop or on the needle tip, and then insert your right needle tip through those. That's the loop you pulled up and the stitch that you skipped, the back loops of them, and knit them together. And then knit the next stitch and repeat. Skip 1, poke into, there you can see it pretty well, just into the stitch below the one on the needle, knit through it, pull up that loop, put it on your needle tip, right needle tip through the backs knit them together, knit the next stitch. We've got a couple more to do on this row. So skip one, poke it in, drop your loop, put it on the needle tip, oops, through the backs, knit them together, slide it off. And that's what it's looking like so far. Knit the next one. You're going to do that the whole way across your row. When you get into the groove of it, when you slide that loop that you make up onto the needle tip, you don't really have to do too much extra motion. I kind of just leave my needle there and slide around into the back loops and knit them together. Okay, we're almost there. Got one more to do. So poke it in, wrap, pull it up. See, I just kind of wiggle my needle right in there. Knit them together, knit one, and then this row ends with knit one. Row two, you're just going to purl back with your multicolor. So your other color, the green, we just kind of left it hanging out at the end of the row over there. You don't need to cut and rejoin these every time. You can just carry it up the side. You won't even see it. And even if you do see it a little bit, we're going to be putting a border on this blanket later, so it'll get all covered up. So this row is an easy row. All the wrong side rows are just purling back with whatever color you just used for your right side row. Okay, now we're going to turn it over. That was row two, and we're going to do row three. Now it starts off, row one started with knit one, and then you got right into those dip stitches, and here's what it looks like so far. Row three, you're going to pick up your other color where it's hanging out waiting for you, which is somewhere. Oh, look at me, I dropped a stitch. Well, we're just going to pretend I didn't drop a stitch. I'm just going to lift that up, put it on the needle. There we go. Okay, so if I hadn't dropped a stitch and everything was going according to plan, this would be right here waiting for me. So I would just pick it up and I would start by knitting two on this row. Just gonna look and make sure that's gonna work. It is. Okay, so you knit two and then you do just exactly what you did up on row one. It says knit two, repeat from the star of row one. So just pop back up to row one, which says skip one stitch. So we're gonna skip that. We're gonna poke into the stitch below and then just repeat what we did before. Lift up on the needle, knit those two together, knit one. So you can kind of see once you get into it, you'll get a little rhythm going, and you're going to be very, very good at this stitch by the time you're done with this section, because that is all this section is those 4 rows over and over again. I chose this stitch because I wanted those variegated wildflower colors kind of broken up. I didn't want just solid stripes of the one color, and I didn't want you to have to do color work or anything like that where you were dealing with 2 colors at a time in your row. The fun thing about this one is you only have to use one color at once. This stitch is sort of in the brioche tuck stitch family of stitches because you're working into the stitch below, which is how dip stitches or tuck stitches work. Okay, so we did the last dip stitch pair there, and this row ends by knitting 2 instead of knitting 1. And that's pretty much it. Now we're just going to purl back for row 4, and you're going to repeat those 2 rows or 4 rows over and over again. Piece of cake once you get the hang of it. So it says on the pattern to go repeat these stitches until you have about 10 inches done on this section, and that is counting the transition part that you did, the first 4 rows of your setup. This stitch eats up a lot of yarn, so if you are knitting at a little looser gauge or variables like that, you might not be able to get 10 inches out of this, and that's fine. If you can only get 8, even if you can only get 6, it does not matter. That's how big your grassy meadow will be, And that's fine. You're making this blanket. Everyone's going to be a little different. If you want to have any of this yarn to use in your border, just save a little bit. You're going to do another transition kind of similar to this one down here between section 2 and section 3. So just make sure you at least save about 10 yards of one of the colors to do the transition between the next 2 sessions. Other than that, if you want to use them all up, that's fine. If you get, 8 inches and you think, okay, I'm tired of this, you can be tired of it. You can stop whenever you want. It's up to you. Doesn't have a lot of structure, this pattern. It's more of a suggestion. So have fun with it. Enjoy the stitch. It's going to be hard to see any kind of a definite stitch definition to it. What you will notice, let me grab the blanket. What you will notice if you're doing it correctly is that you're going to have kind of these diagonal lines forming in your work. So just look for those. If you see those, that means you're doing it right. If you don't see those, but your overall fabric is just kind of blotchy and mottled like this, that's fine too. This is a very low stress project. I don't want anybody to worry about it. If you discover that you have wound up increasing or decreasing a lot of stitches, that's a reason for concern. So stop in or give us a call if you need help with that. But any kind of fabric that you get that resembles this is going to be fine. So thanks for playing. I hope we see you soon. And I can't wait to show you the next section because that's going to be fun too. But have a lot of fun with this one. We'll see you next time. Bye.